Hello everyone, and welcome to which will most definitely be the final episode of Mortal Kombat 11 Kombat Pack 2. So last episode we got to do MILEENA'S fourth tower, or fourth stage. Now we've made it to the final stage, although technically it's not the final since there is one additional tower, but I really don't think that would be interesting, let's be honest. It'd just be me farming for Jinsei, and it just wouldn't feel right for me anyway. But yes, this is the last Mortal Kombat 11 episode, at least for now, until they release something else with it. So in the meantime, we'll do other things afterwards. But as I said before that, I'm going to stick with MK11 off screen for a bit until I can get until the race against time is done, and I get the MK and the Mortal and I can acquire the Mortal Kombat 3 Mileena skin and gear that comes with it. That way, then I can truly feel satisfied with actually the classic variant being done, and then yes, I'll begin the next stuff. So yeah, here we go for a bittersweet conclusion. And yep, that whole notebook method really did do me a lot of favors. Alright, anyway, let's begin. Beginning of the end. Beginning of the end. Let's do this. So crazy that it's gonna be over so quickly, but you know what, hey. It's been a hell of a ride, and it's been a hell of a fun time. And yeah, I'm definitely going to come back when they release something new with this game.
Out of my way, lady.
Only if you best me in combat.
Bring it. Round one. Fight! Round two. Fight! Finish him. Mileena wins.
And funny thing about also farming, I had to have some sort of background video playing on my phone as I was farming, just so I have something to listen to, so I don't just listen to pure silence, because I don't usually sometimes I don't plug my mic into my controller, you know, for the sound, because if I'm farming, I don't need to bore myself with just hearing the repetitive sound effects and whatnot. But I will occasionally pause the video to see if anything new happens, and, you know, something does.
The God in blood taints you. Round one.
Yes, it does. And now it's gonna taint you. Stomp a mud hole in your ass. Gotcha.
Your flesh is my fantasy.
Round two. Fight! Finish him! Mileena wins.
This is nice. I'm really enjoying this. Armored, you say? Not for long, you won't be. Oh yeah, that's the Yashtek outfit that was in Kombat League.
Well, color me gobsmacked.
Round one. Fight.
It's a shame I don't take I don't do the Kombat League, so every time I get the chance to. I don't know, I'm not much of an online guy when it comes to playing games like this. It's also because I'm not that really competitive, and also the fact of the matter is, I don't know. I don't usually play these for the online aspect. I play it so I can go in and show it. It's like with Soul Calibur. It's like I enjoy playing Soul Calibur casually and not like professionally, if I can put that in air quotes. I like Soul Calibur 6. It's a good thing that the game was a success, because it may give us one last sequel or one last outing in the series before I'm sure it retires early, or it retires because it's been around for 20 years. And ship away.
I can already taste you.
Mileena wins.
Yeah. Soul Calibur 6 also happens to have two of my favorite guest characters, 2B from Nier Automata, which we've played, and it's my personal favorite. It's one of my many top 10 favorite games of all time. And Geralt from The Witcher. Shockingly, yes, The Witcher is in a Soul Calibur game. Not a Mortal Kombat game, but he's in a Soul Calibur game, which I don't mind, actually. Oh yeah, and that was one of the Towers of Time I had to use to get up the rankings some more. It was also to get coin, I guess, even though I have so goddamn much of it. Since we got new Mileena gear, let's check it out. Because why not? Oh yeah, and we also got new rain shit. Yeah, because rain had like a tower that we did as well. It was like one of those, I don't know. Yeah, we had a new brutality as well. Oh look, it's the normal iteration of this one. Alright, let's see. Yeah, that's pretty much... Yeah, and I think I did mention this before, that yeah, when it comes to what skins or whatnot I'm gonna do, or I might swap the mask out and I'll give the unmasked honors to the default one I'm using, which would be Killer Queen. Okay, yep. So let's do this, shall we?
Mileena.
I'll give you a bad case of indigestion.
I'll risk it to have a bite.
Do it. You'll pay for it.
Round one. Fight.
And that's one of the new intros Mileena has.
I hope you like pain.
Round two. Fight!
Gotcha. Here, have a starfish.
Mileena wins.
I will say the weirdest thing they did with her, like, with her character is the weird, freakishly long tongue venom type deal she's got. Which is strange because I don't think Tarkatans have tongues that are literally like Venom's length. But, you know, it happens, I guess.
I can save your soul.
It is you who will need saving, Thunder God.
Accept my mercy, or face my wrath.
Round one. Fight!
Yummy.
Round two. Fight! Finish him! Mileena wins.
It's gonna be interesting. Yeah. Despite the many gripes I've had with this game, I've always stated that I do indeed like it. I do want to see it continue to grow. And who knows, maybe it will get better as time progresses. But the campaign will never be the same.
blind.
Yeah, like the campaign, I will always say is not the best, but you know what, hey, not every gem is going to, like, not every turd is going to have a polished gem in it, like, at least in the first iteration you can come up with, but you know what, hey, whatever. Then again, time travel is tricky. Always trying to reinvent it so it always doesn't seem like it's just cliche. It's not so simple.
I hope you like pain.
Round two. Fight.
One thing I will say, at least it's not Street Fighter V. That game's a fucking mess in and of itself as well. it's just crazy to say the least. I think what's funny is I apparently remember hearing from one of these YouTubers that I watch, Maximilian, dude, you should check him out. He's awesome. Apparently, it's like he said something along the lines of, "Who knows? They could be making a Shaolin Monks 2 for the next Mortal Kombat game and do something completely different." Which I'm thinking they could do that, but at the same time, they might have to tweak it a bit, because compared to what Shaolin Monks 1 was like, yeah, that game had a fair share of good things about it, but a whole lot of annoyances as well, such as the camera being finicky and fucking a bitch, as most games in 3D during that era of 3D games was like, to where it was not quite understood how it should work, and it was often very bitchy to deal with, to where you couldn't tell where you were, or the scaling of levels was too fucking big to where you couldn't tell where you were on the actual map until you noticed when you died or some shit. Then of course there was the whole the whole fact that you have to memorize fatalities instantly if you want to finish them off enemies off immediately.
Finisher.
And yeah, I mean, I imagine that game, I do feel like, yes, it does understand a little bit of what the single-player formula should be like for a game, especially like that, where you could literally play it solo or with a friend, and it was so much fun, but yes, there are moments where it can be annoying to deal with at times. Not to mention it was the first time Mortal Kombat ever experimented with that, and God knows they did that with other games, like Sub-Zero, Mortal Kombat Chronicles, Sub-Zero, and the whole Jack Special Forces shit. Yeah, that will never be forgotten, no matter how many times people try and bury it. The game's a fucking atrocity, and everyone should be like informed of it. Not a great game.
Kotal's theft of your throne was ruinous.
You didn't lift a finger to help me regain it.
I am not one to squander assets.
Round 1. Fight. Round 2. Fight!
Yeah, but yeah, when it came to like, I will not. Let's also forget there was also in Mortal Kombat Armageddon when you did Conquest mode, which was essentially story mode before story mode became a thing in popular games at the time. Yeah, it was a single-player like adventure game, where you played as essentially Taven and Dagon, where you played as Taven and uncovered the plot of that, which was essentially to prevent Armageddon, essentially, and defeat Blaze, shit like that. And it was a great conquest. Again, it was very experimental in terms of single-player stuff, but it was genuinely what a conquest I think should have been, where you could just run around, beat the shit out of like NPC bad guys, solve puzzles, find hidden goodies. It's very, very insane. And it also has those moments where, in between those, when you actually encounter other characters, you end up doing boss battle, like the fight. You do the traditional Mortal Kombat fighting game style boss fight, essentially. It was very fun, very intriguing, and it was experimental. It was like the big, last hurrah for I think Midway personally, that they went with that route compared to, say, I don't know, doing it the traditional way where they did it, where it was just you going, it was like an advanced form of ladder, of like an arcade ladder, essentially. At least it was for in Deadly Alliance, and Deception essentially did... Actually, no, Deception did it first, when it came to the single-player-esque type conquest mode. But it was like from a dojo and something like that, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it was a dojo type... It was like, yeah, essentially what Armageddon did, but except I think Armageddon expanded upon it more. Did a lot more things with it. I don't know, it was very... I've never played... Honestly, we'll be honest, I completely forget what happens in the Deception Conquest. It's been such a long time since I've even played Mortal Kombat 7 or even Mortal Kombat 8, honestly. It's been very long since... It's been a very long time indeed, so... I might just be spewing shit out my ass when it comes to trying to explain what those were, but yeah. Shame Mortal Kombat hasn't done that since. And I'm hoping in the next... whatever next project they do as Mortal Kombat related, hopefully they do something similar to the Shaolin Monks. They actually tweak, refine, and actually give it some fucking polish to where it could actually be a great game that everybody can go back to, similar to like how there's some people I'm sure who replay God of War Video Game Plus to re-immerse themselves into that world, into re-immersing themselves into, you know, God of War 4's story and whatnot, to get reattached and go back on the journey, such as like we did, of course. And yeah, I mean, they could definitely come up with some cool, crazy concepts with it. Because I do think a Mortal Kombat game that is single player and does not do this style, I think could be done easily. But I do feel that it will take some time before somebody can genuinely figure out how to make that work. Because you don't want to copy any games that have done it way better, I'm sure, than you did in the past. But at the same time, you could, it's like the same thing that we said with the people, I'm sure, begging for the combat, like, custom fighter creation thing, like, essentially what Armageddon did was it did what Soul Calibur 3 did, where it introduced character customization, where you could make your own OC or whatever, and give them their own backstory, their own weapons, their own gear and shit. Like, it was all cosmetic, though. It had no real function, other than, except for the weapons you could use. Which, by the way, you could actually fight, like, hand-to-hand and then and press a certain button, I think, to swap between your bare hands and an actual weapon you'd use. And that was, I think, the gimmick of the Deadly Alliance slash Deception slash Armageddon. From, I think, yeah, that's what Deadly Alliance did, and then they carried that system on over from Deception to Armageddon. And yeah, it was always great to see the weapons that they'd give you.
How did you become?
And there's so many unique weapons you could use. There was the hook blades, there was sais, there were swords, great swords, there was, I think, staffs, there was naginatas, there were so many weapons to use. It was great. And I really miss those days of Mortal Kombat. You know, when Midway was at least still somewhat involved and played a huge role in, you know, maintaining it, you know, its legacy until they got shut down because of so many things they forget about. It's a tragic fate because I honestly love the games Midway pumped out. The Suffering, of course, being the one game that I feel could have easily kept going, or at least had some sort of a spin-off. I don't know. It's the story of what could have been had things been different. But you know what? Hey, it happens to some companies.
Mileena wins.
But some are more fortunate than others and die earlier. And then, I don't know. It's unfortunate. I mean, God forbid Atari hasn't made a new console or game in years, as far as I can recall. And I don't know if they're defunct. I think they're still around, but I don't think they're heavily involved in the games industry anymore. I mean, I could be completely wrong, honestly. But yeah, it's a shame some game companies haven't really changed or survived much after the early to mid 2000s, the early to like mid 2000s, all the way into the late and early 2010s. And the early 2010s. It's a shame because they're really, I mean, shockingly enough, the PlayStation 2 still kept getting games ported to it, even after you know, nobody really quite technically quote unquote played it. And that's really, like, shows you the longevity of the games on it.
Had I known the truth.
But I don't really know what the last PlayStation 2 game was. Like, unlike other consoles, the PlayStation 2 still had people who played it and supported it. And that's something I wish PlayStation still did. I wish that's something PlayStation actually still did. Where they actually kept some, like, for example, PlayStation 4, they could still keep making games for it, or porting games to it, because, mind you, there's lots of people who can't afford a PS4, a PlayStation 5 right now, especially, myself included. And until it goes on clearance or it's very cheap, which I doubt, like it's like $300 cheaper or something, there's no way I can buy it. And most people who already own it are either influencers, send one for free, or they actually ordered one themselves and they got lucky when it came in the mail for them or something like that.
Finisher.
Damn it. Yeah, and it's just, I don't know. There's just so many games, like game franchises, I guarantee that should have come back from the dead. Like, there's one game actually Namco made a long time ago that I completely forgot about, and I have not found a single, like, I have not found a single ounce of a copy of it since. It's a game, a very niche game called Breakdown. It was a game that was first-person. Yeah, it was a first-person, action-oriented game that was very sci-fi, trippy, and weird. I do remember the demo being superbly strange. And because it was a demo, it was short, and it would have a lot of moments where you want more, but you'd have to buy the actual game when it released. But thankfully, but of course we didn't have magazines like Game Informer. Well, actually, no, I think Game Informer was a thing back then, actually, now that I think about it. But it wasn't, as it is now, mediocre. No, but in all fairness, I don't know. It's like it's a difficult beast to tackle. Let's be honest. Like, especially when it comes to making or sequels that, you know, like, have long been in the making and been awaited for years. Some games can make it work, but others, yeah, I don't know how to put it I can't mince words. Sometimes they just fuck it up somewhere, because somewhere in the line either it all has to do with some sort of PR marketing shit, or it's got something to do with just, I don't know, it's a mess to say the least, honestly. Like, it's a mess to say the least, because some games I feel do have the potential to be great if enough, you know, if there's a lot of attention given to it, or if, you know, the right people are involved. But there are just some instances where it just doesn't work and it feels forced. Like they didn't give a shit at some point. Or it's completely new blood, and none of them have done this. Have done a project similar to this before, and because they're new blood, you know, they're basically new-blooded. It's going to be a pain in the ass to try and remain consistent with certain features and certain functions. It's just a shame, really, honestly. It almost feels like some games just do it all for the money and less about the art, or at least less about the actual craft itself. And it makes genuine creators like, you know, Santa Monica, or... I mean, okay, I'll put it like this. You have companies that are like Konami, who basically don't make a good game anymore and and have basically not made a goddamn entry in any of their franchises and make them for cheaper machines in literally years, as far as I understand. And when you do, it's utter crap. Like when they do release entries to like fan favorite titles, it's always shit. It's either horribly made, or it's made by a team that's inexperienced and completely does not understand what made the originals so great. Even Contra, of course, is the biggest benefactor of that, and Metal Gear Survive, which was made all to try and like stick it to Kojima, saying we can still make a good Metal Gear game without you, which clearly no one liked. Even Kojima mocked it. Like, and you know you're bad when the guy who literally made that series like something iconic. Like, yeah, literally, Kojima made Metal Gear something iconic. And it's literally still a beloved game series to this day, even though 5 was a mess and it has so many shortcomings in places. Great, I'm doing that thing again where I'm getting sloppy because I can't focus on both talking and playing at the same time.
Finish it.
I don't know, it's a shame there's some games studios that don't give a shit about their employees and don't care about making good games. They just merely doing it for a profit. To me, is scummy. EA did that with Star Wars. Every Star Wars game just kept getting worse and just more and more scummy. And thankfully, I think EA's starting to take the hint that maybe they should stop being dickheads and actually try and make quality titles and quality games that people will genuinely want to play, instead of making the same exact type of games where there's so many like broken parts to it. There's not any like polish. It's all rushed. Nothing's finished. There's microtransactions. There's literally microtransactions like spread into its foundations to where everything needs to have a microtransaction in order for it to be played. They're just being very shitty about it. I mean, Capcom has apparently been doing this too, and recently has had this problem too. But the thing about Capcom is at least they actually do have the moments where they genuinely still make good games where the microtransactions are required. Devil May Cry 5 is a goddamn great example where, yeah, there's in-game store stuff, but recently they added cosmetic shit, just so that way in case you don't want to get... So you can just instantly unlock items or upgrade shit, which I did, unfortunately, because I didn't have the time or patience to get through all the difficulties again, just to relearn, just to inevitably forget all the mechanics again if I ended up deleting it like a dumbass. But I did it all because I wanted to at least have some semblance of progress again. And so that way I was easily decked out to the tits for when, even upgraded to the deluxe edition where it gave me additional content. Such as, it gave me all the bonus tracks, the 3 bonus tracks that each character could be given. All the alternate costumes, all the super costumes, all the double busters, including the free one that you could get, essentially, which was literally a fucking devil arm made out of literally nothing but bananas, and it was literally it was Helter Skelter if it was a bundle of bananas. It was very ridiculous, but it was definitely something I would imagine being in Devil May Cry if there was like any shadow of a doubt that they wouldn't have a moment where they could just be ridiculously silly, which they do at times, and it was good fun. But yeah, I did all of that, and also got all the provocations, because I wasn't going to farm for 3 million goddamn fucking red orbs, but I ended up doing it anyway in Bloody Palace, so that way I could get at least the rest, all the characters' skills and abilities again. Which was a pain, but it was a reward I genuinely welcomed back with open arms. And I had to farm also, look everywhere for all the purple orb fragments and blue orb fragments, and I finally got them all. And I reacquired them all again. It was great. And yeah, when the Virgil DLC does come out, you bet your ass we're gonna be ready for it. Even I don't know, it's gonna be, even though it's such a shame that apparently Virgil wasn't the only one that was going to possibly be playable in Special Edition, but at the same time, I don't know. Like, because only Virgil seems to be the main meat and potatoes of the marketing in that front, because literally, yeah, people want to play as Virgil. And that's always custom when it comes to Special Editions, at least for Devil May Cry, after 3. Because there was no Special Edition of Devil May Cry 1 or Devil May Cry 2, because essentially both games were already fine. Well, 2 is an atrocity because there were so many, like, the development history on that is so fucked. It was all because Capcom did not inform Kamiya-san about this involvement and how his team was not contacted, and how essentially it was DMC2 was made behind his back, and so he said, "Fuck you, I'm leaving. I'm taking my team with me." And they ended up forming Platinum Games at some point down the line, and basically yeah, but DMC 1 was already a great game in and of itself, even if it had its issues here and there, but still it was already complete enough to where it didn't need anything else. 2 should have been worked on more, should have had more time in the oven to be properly cooked and seared to where it wasn't raw, it wasn't charred, but it wasn't overdone. It was well done to where it had everything it needed to be good, but it didn't. And because of its many issues, it's what holds that game back. 3 though was where, yes, they definitely had ideas to where, yeah, you could expand it, especially if you did Virgil's stuff where you could play as him just for
Come with me. You must stay.
Round 1.
to where you could basically just have like a segment where you could just literally play as Virgil, and then I like to say that, yeah, that stemmed from like this one mission in the original release where, yes, when you do the Arkham boss fight, you actually can play as Virgil if you plug in a second controller, and it's the only segment in the game where you can actually play co-op, and that's where I think the foundations for it being a feature that was actually exclusive to the Nintendo Switch port of Devil May Cry 3. Of Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition. Yeah, it was great. Ouch. And it's just so good to see that,
Round 2. Fight.
that response to a Special Edition was so welcomed. But yeah, when it came to, but then the 4th Special Edition, unfortunately, did not do much except for add, Lady and Trish were playable for the very first time in literally, in any instance of the game. I mean, granted, Trish was playable in 2, but she doesn't really have any cutscenes that show she was there. She's a hidden character, essentially, you could play as with her own custom theme and whatnot, but yeah, she's just not. I don't know. It doesn't really count in my opinion in that regard because she's never alluded to at all. She's just there in the. It's like same with the Majin Devil Trigger. It's just there. There's no context to how it's there. It's just there, with no rhyme or reason. It's a cool little segment, but it's really useless when you really think about it. Because it's like a last resort, but even then, it's useless because it's only a one-time use thing. You can't use it ever again after that, which is stupid in my opinion. But you know what? Hey, power to you. And yeah, I don't know. The costumes were also lackluster in 2. Anyway, yeah, but in 4, that game was. Let's just say, 4, I mean, it's no secret 4 was a very had moments where it felt really rushed. Where it felt like it was really rushed, and the development process behind that was also a nightmare as well. Because they had to rush, essentially, to get the game out in time with the launch of the Xbox 360. Yeah, with the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, which were really, recently new. Which were still recently, the new hottest console at the time. And so, a whole year of development was rushed, and a lot of content that was supposed to be in there was completely either canned or completely, saved for another entry. And the game has this moment where you play essentially the same exact environments twice. Forwards with Nero, backwards is Dante, and then two other areas, and then 2 additional areas where you're inside the Savior as Nero. But one example is the whole chess game, or the dice game, that appears when you're in the lab underneath Fortuna Castle. But except it's a boss rush, and it's the exact same bosses. But yeah, you basically also end up fighting the same exact bosses 3 times. Except for Sanctus, you fight him twice, actually. You fight the Savior twice, technically, but when you fight the Savior the second time, it's just Sanctus. But you just have to basically buster him twice. Yeah, you essentially have to do the Devil Buster move on him twice. Yeah, I don't know, 4 is a very rough game. It's like, as it's described, it is a great game, but it is heavily flawed in areas if you really look for them hard enough. And it's a shame. But yeah, even with the 4th Special Edition, yeah, that problem still remains, where you do end up playing through the game, essentially going through the exact same environments 3 times, like backwards and forwards. Like, and like that problem repeats itself, especially when you play as Virgil and especially when you play as Lady and Trish. And it's a problem because making it replay it, that's why replaying it is such a bitch, because you essentially already know where to go, and it gets so boring and repetitive, even despite the fact that if you're playing as a new character, it's still not fun. But when it comes to 5 Special Edition, I'm hoping that I mean, thankfully, that game is already perfectly, like, was perfect in every way, in theory. To where, yeah, the story was perfect, everything was polished to a point, everything played well, the variety and combat was great and welcoming. Like, everything felt like it needed to be there and didn't just feel like it was just rushed to holy hell just so that way it was in the game by the time it was released. Which is good, because I hate when games get rushed. Like, you can't rush something like, especially when it comes to a game, because if you rush it, you risk basically not only tainting what your vision was, but making the game borderline broken and unplayable, and then having the fan bases basically bitch and scream at you for years to come. But it almost sometimes occasionally will happen depending. But anyway, that ranting aside, I just realized we literally are on the last tower for Stage 5, and then that's the end of the series.
Send in the clone.
And then basically we're done with Mortal Kombat 11, at least when it comes to streaming it for now. And I'm not done with it just yet, as I'm going to be doing lots of farming for getting the towers. Yeah, so just doing more towers, that way my percentage on the board is enough to where when the race against time is over, I can get that Mortal Kombat 3 Mileena classic skin. And I'll be satisfied with my life decisions at that point. And it'll be sweet. It'll be very sweet. And yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be a wild ride, I know. But yep. It's gonna be a shame to say goodbye to MK11 again for now, until they release the next Kombat Pack or whatever the hell else in terms of content. I mean, I already played with the movie skin, so the reactions to that would be very dull and uninspiring because it's not raw.
You disappoint me, Mileena.
How have I offended you, Mother?
The Shaolin monk still lives.
Round 1. Fight!
I don't know, it's like something I just don't understand at times. So yeah, when it comes to content, yeah, it's gonna be it for this game, at least when it comes to streaming, until they release again Kombat Pack 3 or some other form of like awesomeness that I have to then pay for. That is my problem. Is yeah, some of the fact that I have to buy stuff, especially if it's in like a pack. I mean, yeah, the fact there's only 3 fighters instead of 6, like original. I mean, granted, that's I think the issue with Kombat Pack 1, and then again, COVID was where they're gonna have to limit it to just 1 character, and they're gonna release them all simultaneously. So I think, yeah, the crunch in that regard is kind of, I'm sure, alarming. But at the same time, if it's only 3 characters, I'm sure it's a necessary risk to take at times, anyway. Then again, crunch is never good because, as it's been demonstrated, especially as of lately, it can be horribly mishandled if like enough time passes to where, yes, it could definitely pose a threat to essentially future projects for game developers, especially. The fact that Naughty Dog won a fucking award at the Game Awards for being the best studio, despite the fact that it's been completely proven that the crunch was awful during the development of The Last of Us 2, just sickens me for some reason. Like, how do you fucking do that, even though it's been confirmed that this practice is still being utilized and studios are being rewarded for it? It's just, it seems like a giant slap to the face, but you know what? At the end of the day, I don't make the decisions, do I? I'm just a streamer who shouldn't have the right to play. Who has to pay in order to pay the studios for playing their game, according to that asshole who works at Stadia. You fucking idiot. Yeah, fuck that guy, honestly. The guy literally is so butthurt that his fucking console failed. Well, I say console because it's not quite a console. Yeah, he's so butthurt that his fucking project failed because nobody liked it, because it just didn't work. And the fact he got all pissed off and bitchy because of it, I feel it just felt like he just wanted to personally attack streamers because of that. And that's not something you want to say to people who are probably going to advertise the shit out of your content. Like, you probably shouldn't badmouth them because they're doing the job that they're doing something they enjoy doing. It has nothing to do with money or whatever. And fair use is such a stupid thing that's being mishandled as of lately. Because anybody could make an excuse for fair use being violated. God forbid, it was half the reason my channel actually got struck because the game, the Berserk game I played, had licensed and the permission to utilize the footage from the Golden Age Arc animated films, which, I might add, were heavily edited to cut down on time, so the cutscenes would relatively be 2 hours long when put together. And the fact that literally that reason alone is why I couldn't keep the series going, why my channel had to suffer for it, all because some dickhead in a fucking... Especially when it came from... It was a lawsuit from... Or it was not a lawsuit, it was from... It was a claim from Germany, from a company I've never... Like a distribution company I've never fucking heard of, called Universum, or some stupid shit. Really stupid sounding name. Essentially, yeah, they essentially struck it down because they owned a specific portion of the footage, I suppose, although there is no evidence to support that, and anything I looked into them, I just couldn't... Like, you own the German dub, you don't own the actual animation footage. That actually belongs to the studio that made it, essentially, so technically you're incorrect. Or some stupid, pretentious shit like that. I always hated shit like that. It just felt such like a bitch move or whatever the case. I don't know how this shit works, and I just frankly I don't give a shit is my thing. Like, if I really gave a shit about like that, because it's so piss poor at times. Yeah, it can be so piss poor that if it's handled incorrectly, a lot of people will be pissed off about it, you know what I'm saying? It just doesn't make sense to me at times. Just some of the stupidity that comes from that. I don't know. But yes. And on that note, I'm going to end this here. So thank you all for joining me for this Kombat Pack 2 playthrough. It was quite fun. And I'll see you, well, whenever I do next, so yeah. Ciao.